Hey everyone, welcome to this week's United Soccer Association podcast and film. This week we do have Kai Vilmer, our executive director for the USA League. Welcome, Kai.
Hello, glad to be here.
And we also have our special guest, Phil Zayas. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for being here, Phil. And on this episode, we wanted to bring Phil on because we just got past tryouts, and as everyone knows, if you follow any of youth soccer clubs on social media, everybody's promoting the pathway. We went from over the time of promoting college soccer, where now a lot of clubs are promoting pro soccer, but a lot of time there is a clarity missing and an educational piece missing. Well, how does one actually get there? And so I thought we'd bring on Phil, who's kind of an expert in that realm, who's done pretty much everything in the soccer space. And Phil, I'll just give you a little moment to give you a little background about yourself and what you're doing now and so forth, and then we'll dig in deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, guys, again, thank you for having me on. I appreciate you welcoming me into your space. And a little bit about me. I'm a native Floridian. Born and raised here in South Florida, and it was my dream as a kid to be a professional soccer player when I was younger, and tore both ACLs by the time I was like 20, 21 years old, and then I realized it probably wasn't going to happen for me as a player. So I started chasing the dream to coach at the highest level, and been chasing the dream ever since. And since then, I've worked for 3 national teams. I worked for the U.S. Youth National Team as a scout for about 5 or 6 years, primarily with South Florida as my territory. And I've worked for 3 MLS clubs. I've coached about 15 years of college soccer, every division with the exception of Division 3. So kind of done a lot of different things. I've worn a lot of different hats. Most recently, I was a technical director of an MLS Next club. So I've done that as well, and coached at that level. So kind of done a little bit of everything. So hopefully I can be a great assistance to you guys and to the members of your league, and hopefully can provide some great info for you.
That's awesome. Quite an expensive experience you got there, and so we're kind of digging in. So obviously you're seeing that too happening in the youth space nowadays with the pathway and promoting pro soccer, and obviously and a lot of kids having this dream of becoming a professional soccer player, and a lot of parents that would like to help their kids get there but don't know how, and it's a lot of confusion out there. So when you see, what are your thoughts on when you see what you're seeing right now in the social media world about what everybody's putting out there, and like what are some of the myths that you see that is currently out there that's maybe a bit misleading?
Well, myths. Well, there's a lot of myths. I think the tough part is that, and I understand this could go off on a tangent, so I apologize if we go into some different directions here. But I think the big issue that I see is there's a lot of misinformation, and a lot of, I guess, parents would follow people. Parents are desperate for information. There's no doubt in that. Like their kid has this dream, and they want to support their kid and their dream. And really, American families are willing to do whatever it takes to help their kid's dream become a reality. So unfortunately, most of the people that are competent in that area, they really don't speak much, which is actually why recently I started speaking out on social media, which for me in my career could be very dangerous. Some people that are at the highest levels that reached out to me, they're like, hey, be careful. But I'm like, I just feel obligated to say something. We've got 6 million soccer parents in this country, and they're desperate for information. People at the highest levels aren't really saying too much because they're worried, they're afraid that if they say the wrong thing, it could jeopardize their career. And I just felt obligated to start speaking. So on my social media handles, specifically my Instagram and my TikTok, I've been saying a lot. Just started on YouTube a little bit, which is just look me up, Phil Zayas. I mean, and I think Kai, you've been following my walk-in talks in the morning, so I just started that, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback. But and I feel bad for the parents; they're just desperate for information and they don't know where to go. And there's a lot of times, and what got me to what motivated me to do it was I'm on TikTok, and I'm going to sleep at night and I'm scrolling through and I'd see some guy on there and he'd be giving, information to parents. And it would sound something like this. It'd be like, well, I once knew this guy who was married to this girl that her roommate's uncle's cousin was a scout. And he said, if you do these three things, you can make it as a pro. And I'm like, formal roommates, uncle's cousin, what? And then I'd click on the guy's profile, and sure enough, he's got like 500,000 followers. Now, for me, it wasn't about like, I don't care about getting 1 million followers or anything. I just want people to get the right information. So I'm like, I've been a professional scout, and so I know what it looks like, and maybe they need to hear it from the horse's mouth. So I'm starting to share, and on that, and I have my own podcast, the Soccer Phil Show, which I'm sharing. And I also have a consulting business, but the consulting business is dedicated to guiding the 1% to 5% to being a pro. And so I have a business where I really help them in their careers, and I put a lot of time and energy into it. And I will tell you that 100% of the kids have had some kind of offer, whether it's been pro or college. So, but I've also been very selective. There's a lot of companies out there that will just take people's money, and I'm not into that. I think for me, I sleep very well at night knowing that I'm doing the right thing. So, but I would say the most recent comments that I've had from parents is parents are asking about their highlight videos, because I just posted about that. And it's very important that a kid has a strong highlight video. But I've got parents reaching out to me where their kid is 8 to 12 years old. So I think the first thing I would try to focus on is the parents of the younger players. I think this is so important. And I think this is really important for coaches to hear this too. But if you want your kid to be a pro, and he's between the ages of 8 and 12 years old, and trust me when I tell you, there's a lot of those parents out there, make sure that your kid first and foremost is loving the sport, falls in love with the sport. That's it. If they don't fall in love with this thing, they're going to quit by the time they're 13 years old. And as you guys know, we have to me, one of the biggest issues in the country is our dropout rate at 13. And Kai, I think me and you have spoken about this before, and how the numbers are kind of decreasing and stuff. And there's many reasons, many factors as to why kids quit at 13. But I will say a big part of it is that it's no longer fun and they have other options. So if it's not fun, I'd rather go do something else. And I'd say the same for me. I've been doing this almost my whole life. I'm 49 years old, but the day that I don't enjoy it anymore, I'd probably go do something else too. So I can't blame them. So I think coaches need to understand when you're running your sessions and you're training kids, just make sure after every session, you can ask the kids this question. You say, did you guys have fun, and what did you learn? And if they can say they all had fun, and those little kids, they're so honest, like they will tell you directly. They're bluntly honest. So, and I think parents, when your kid gets in the car, when they get in the car, they should be able to say, hey, I had so much fun. This is what I learned. And if you're accomplishing that, that's what matters most. Don't worry so much about if they're going to be a pro, because if they don't fall in love with it, then the next phase is when they're 13 to 15, there's going to have to be some work that has to be done. And you're only willing to sacrifice when you love something. Does that make sense?
That is very true. You got to love what you do, or else, especially if you're trying to become a professional, right? I mean, it can't be a job to do. It has to be a passion for you, something you really, really love. And, so what would you say to people? Because right now, I think there's also this perception of, if I play in the ECNL, or I play in MLS Next, or I play in XYZ Showcase, that's all I need to do. I need to be there, and I'm on my I'm on my way, right? So,
well, I think to be a pro wherever you are, you have to prove that you're special, that you're different, that you're a fantastic player. I will say so I have an 11-year-old, and he came to me the other day, and I don't push him. I want him to fall in love with the game on his own. He's had a great coach for the first 3 years of his travel soccer career, and that coach has got all the kids to fall in love with the game, which to me is the biggest achievement for that coach and probably the best thing he could do. So my kid loves the game now, and he said to me, he said, Dad, he said, I want to be a pro. I want to be on the national team. And I told him bluntly, I said, listen, if that's the path you want to go, then you need to improve your game, work on it. It's got to be driven from you. And at some point, you probably have to get into MLS next. You've got to prove yourself and be one of the top players in that league. And then hopefully you'll get scouted for the national team, and that's the progression. In regards to leagues, look, I think in today's day and age, if a kid, I don't care if a kid is playing on a cow pasture with 5 other kids, if he is fantastic, someone's going to pull out their phone and they're going to take pictures and videos of this kid. It's going to go viral or whatever. And when I tell you, I mean, when I was working for the national team, for example, I would get phone calls from directors, coaches, parents, you name it. And they'd say, Phil, listen, there's a kid out over here in, I don't know, in Naples, and no one knows who he is. And he's fantastic. You have to see him. And so we'd figure out a way for me to see him, and I'd see him. And this kid he was in a grassroots league. Okay. And, we wasn't in a top league. But then what happens is at some point that kid will get invited to a U.S. national team training center. When he does, he will be seen by a bunch of MLS coaches, and then someone will pick him up. And that's usually how it happens. But if I was an aspiring young player and I wanted to be at the highest level and be a pro one day, then yeah, it makes sense to try to play whatever is the best perceived league, which in my opinion is MLS Next. I think that is the best league for youth in the country in regards to the level. At some point, yeah, you want to get there, but I'd say you don't have to. There's kids. So I was pretty known for this too. Like I would find players that were in other leagues. So for example, there was a kid, and I'll mention his name. He was out of Palm Beach. No one knew who he was. And his name's Peyton Presson. And Peyton was called up to the, I think, U20s recently. And I could be wrong on that. Could be U18s, U20s maybe. Anyways, he was called up, and when I identified him, he was 13 years old, but he was playing in a local league, FYSA, and he was playing U17s or U18s at the time. But the kid was very advanced. And they were like, Phil, you got to see this kid. He was also physically mature for his age, but he was very good, very technical. His game understanding was through the roof. And what happened was someone called me and told me about him. And then when I invited him to a national team training center, the kid ran over like all the kids that were like he must have scored like 4 goals in 25 minutes. And I remember my boss from US Soccer turning and looking at me, and he just said, great find. And so now that was when he was 13. Fast forwarding now, he just got called up. So, and he's playing professionally right now in Europe. So, but I've got a bunch of stories like that. And so I would just say wherever you are, you got to crush it if you want to be a pro. If you want to be a pro, you have to be absolutely relentless. Number one, you have to love it. Number two, you have to be relentless. And you've got to be intrinsically motivated to chase this dream no matter what.
Yeah, and you got to have, like I said, you got to have the drive and passion for it for sure. And then what would you say, let's see, obviously you've been on the other side of the MLS scouting side. How does that process work when you're looking to identify players? Let's just say, for example, MLS Next, right? Because obviously it's not just as simple as putting on a badge on your sleeve and playing for an ECNL MLS Next club, and the rest is history. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into that. So how does that look like? What do MLS clubs, the scouts, like? How does that work? How does that process work?
Well, I think for every club it's different. So I can't speak on. I think it could be a different process for every club. Different clubs have different profiles that they're looking for, positional profiles, physical profiles. So it's different for me, myself, I'm a guy who kind of flips over every rock. So I tap into my network, and I mean, I've been doing this for 29 years, involved in the game, so I know a lot of people, and I pick up the phone and I make phone calls, and I'm just relentless with it. Just like a player has to be relentless if you're scouting or coaching or you want to be at the highest level, you have to also be hungry and relentless to go find that next kid. And so that's why it gets frustrating when I hear, "Oh, the scouting is a lot of people." That's a myth. I will tell you one thing that's a myth because I've worked in it. People bash the scouting a lot, but what they don't realize is that sometimes we can identify the top talent. We can even identify potential talent, but then there's a trial process, and the kid has to go on trial. I think if I would say there's a flawed process with most clubs, it's probably the trial process, and they all have their own different processes. But I see there's a lot of great players that get missed at the door. So there's so many times that I see a kid go on trial, and I'm like, man, that kid's really special. But maybe he's on trial for 3 days and he has one bad day, and they say no, thank you. But he's better than everyone there, And so I think that's something most people don't see. But and especially in regards to the national team, I will say, and I mean, I think people know me, that people that know me know I'm very transparent with this stuff. But I will say I had some misconceptions about U.S. national team scouting, and I thought they weren't finding the hidden gems and all that. But then I got into it, and I met all these guys that were doing it, and I realized, man, I'm one of 80 other scouts, and these guys are like me. They do it because they really want our national team to win, and they're hungry, and they really want that kid that people don't think might make it, but to get a chance and everything. So I actually think they do a great job in the scouting. I think the tough part here also with our country is that we're huge. We have a huge country, and that doesn't mean it hurts us from a scouting perspective, but I just think at some point we need more professional clubs. We actually, when you look at it, we actually have almost have too much talent, so much so that a kid that doesn't make our national team can go play for another country and qualify for a World Cup. And he's third, fourth, fifth on our list. So we actually have a lot of talent. But in regards to the MLS clubs, they all have their different processes. I think scouting, it's almost impossible nowadays for a hidden gem to be missed because there's so many eyeballs on these kids and everyone talks. I think where you have issues is people trying to hide kids. No one talks about that. But there's people that try to hide players because they don't want to lose that kid to an MLS club. That's an interesting topic, which I haven't even dove into on my little walk and talks. But that's one that
happens. Is that to protect the success of the team that they're currently coaching and not losing the player? Because, or what would be the reason to hide, let's say, a potential player?
I think there's more. I mean, look, there's some guys that run their own like academies, and I could understand that a person running a club or an academy, you don't want to lose 5 kids in the middle of the season because then it disrupts your whole environment and your business. And I understand that, and I respect that. But, when you try to hold on to a kid and say, yeah, we want him to stay till he's 16 or 17, I'm like, at that point, what happens is when you hold on to a kid for that long and he turns down these MLS clubs, well, those clubs go with other players. So what you did is you took away the opportunity for that kid to grow in a professional, competitive environment, and you kept him in your academy. And then unfortunately, at 17, or at U18, when they already have the roster full, why are they going to go with you when you turned them down when they've already got their rosters full? So I think part of it is it's one thing to like keep the kid for the season because you want to, keep your team intact. And I respect that, to be honest. I understand that. But to hold on to the kid for multiple years and try to hold on to him for like 2 or 3 years, at that point, you're probably ruining his career. You're taking a risk at ruining his career. So unless now, don't get me wrong, if you have a better pathway, then okay, which many of these guys feel they do, and some do, but it's not often that they do. So yeah, I could tell you a lot of stories in regards to that, but I think that's one of. I mean, some guys specifically just want to win, and so it's a little bit of selfishness, and so they hold a kid back from that opportunity because they want their team to win, they want their club to win. I mean, to be fair, they're trying to keep their job, so I'm trying to put myself in their shoes to understand that a little bit. But for me, I'm all about trying to help the kids and give them the best opportunity. The only place where I could say, and I hear some of their valid points, because I'll get pushed back by a few guys when they hear me. If this gets out there, they're going to hear this and they're going to push back a little bit. And their only valid point sometimes is that sometimes a club will take a kid and they don't feel the kid is ready. And that kid then gets cut in a year, sent back to the club he came from, and is in shambles. That kid is a shell of himself, and so, but that goes to my coaching issue. Look, I think we have a bigger issue with coaching in this country, and specifically with our better players. I don't think our best coaches are working with our best players. So if you want to know why kids don't translate to the absolute highest level, I'd say it's because we don't have our best coaches working with our best. We have some really good coaches. I think we have some great coaches in this country, actually, but I don't think they're necessarily working with our best players.
I've heard that before. I forgot where. I actually, if I'm not mistaken, I could maybe have been Landon Donovan that something that said something like that. But I heard that same comment before already. So now the other thing is obviously what people don't talk about a lot. Let's just say a kid does get into a proper MLS academy, right? How many percent actually make the jump from an MLS academy into a first team?
I mean, I think every club's different, but if you look at the statistics, and this is just not MLS, this is worldwide. I think it's everywhere. Everywhere is the same in the world, but you've got about 3% would be high. But if you look at some of the clubs have a higher percentage than others. So it's. But I would say overall, I mean, to make it as a pro and sustain yourself for the rest of your life based off of money you've made playing, I mean, it's less than 1% that actually make it.
Wow.
I mean, and the question is, what does making it mean? Like, let's define that. Is making it mean you get one game on a roster or you play a few professional first team matches? Is that making it? Is making it, to where you sign a 3 or 4 year deal and you're making a few $100,000 a year or $1 million? I mean, what does it mean to make it? I think is another thing we'd have to look at and define.
Yeah, it is. You're right. There's different kinds of making it, right? There's one game and you never hear of the guy again, or somebody that's been around for a couple of years, or somebody that has a 15, 20-year career. But obviously, yeah, the number is it's a small percentage that make that jump. The other thing I know that I've come across talking to parents and some players also is the players. Like, what would you talk to players, or where is the line of, because I know there's a lot of parents who would rather have their kid focus on academics and go the college route. And although that's kind of been I don't know, it's kind of lost its focus a little bit, where everything's kind of been pushed on, pro. So where is that there? When I know some parents had a concern, talking to some where the kid seemed to be more focused on doing the soccer than actually his education, thinking about, he or she thinking about, getting an education, not just, thinking about pro. Where do you draw the line there, or how do you manage that with a young aspiring soccer player?
Well, when I'm doing, like, for example, when I do consulting with young players, the youngest players I take on are 14 years old. They're with their families, but we think they're on a pro pathway, but before I take them on, part of the conversation is you have to be open to both pathways. Like I see a potential future for this kid of being a pro or a college player. And if you're not open to both, then I wouldn't even further the conversations with the family and have them as a consulting client, because obviously the 1% is not easy to crack. I mean, I've had a lot of players that have gone pro that I've worked with, but it's not easy. And it's not easy to play in college either. And that's the misconception from a lot of American families. They don't realize that the college game is very global. And so, college coaches, they're encouraged to bring in internationals, international players. The school wants diversity. You can bring players from all over the world, and soccer gives you that. And so these coaches travel all over the world. I mean, when I was coaching an NAIA team for like 10 years. And toward the last few years of my time there, I must have had like 16 guys from Argentina. So I had, and I'd say 75% of the roster was probably internationals. Now that's another conversation too. I was at an NAIA school where a lot of the top American kids thought they were too good to play at an NAIA school. They all wanted to go D1, which is another conversation. I would just say this. College is still a pathway to be a pro. You can become a pro from going to college. It's not easy. I've participated as a scout in 2 MLS drafts. So I actually had 2 very successful drafts with 2 MLS teams where the league actually rated those drafts an A. So, the MLS gives a letter grade for how every team does in the draft, and both of my drafts got an A. So I'd like to think I'm pretty good at that, and I was able to find players that translated to first team football in MLS. So I think the college game can give you that. I just think American kids have to realize that it is not easy. Playing Division I is extremely hard. It's almost like, I don't know, it's like the minor league of the championship in England. Like it is hard. It is very it's a lot of internationals, and you're playing against men. You're playing against guys who are 22, 23 years old. So if you're a senior out of high school, going Division I right away is not easy. Again, I offer a whole service for this for those players that are on that pathway, but it's definitely, a lot of kids still want to do it. Again, I just want to explain, share to the players and parents, like, your kid has to be good enough to play at that level. It's almost like being a pro. And I really would encourage the kids and the families to look at all levels, like Division III, Division II, Division I, NAIA, JUCO. Do not big time any levels. I think, and it's crazy, but you'll find in Division III, there's a lot of kids that came from MLS academies playing Division III. So the level of college soccer in this country is very high. And scouts from all over the world are starting to watch the college game. It's a great place if, like, let's say you're a late bloomer and you're really good, but you didn't get into a pro academy, go to college, crush it, try to go pro. What I think is sad, and I've seen this happen a bunch of times, and one time I got in an argument with not an argument, but just I got into it a little bit with this one agent, because I get a lot of agents that call me, and so, I'm friends with a lot of them, but this one guy was really pushing a player on me, and he wanted the club I was with to sign this kid. And I was like, man, listen, I got to be honest. This kid's not ready. And I told the agent, I was like, look, this kid, you guys are hyping him up all over social media, but the reality of it is he wouldn't make my NAIA team. And you're pushing this kid to be a pro, and someone's going to sign him. And in 2 years, that kid is going to be done playing soccer when he could have went to college, played 4 years, and then maybe have been a pro. And then you know what happened? Exactly what I said. Someone signed him. Now the kid's nowhere, and he's done. That happens a lot.
On the other flip side of things, going back to the academies, what are some things that you feel that our MLS academies in America are doing really well, and what are some things that you feel like maybe could be improved on, or not being done so well from your time? And obviously, you can only speak to the ones you were involved with, but
Well, the one thing that they're doing really well is, I mean, they're giving kids. We talk about pay to play all the time, and people are always talking about these things are free. These things are free. So when you're providing that free option for our better players, I think that's fantastic. I think that's really fantastic. So, and they're giving these kids the environment to compete against their peers and some of the best players in their age group on an everyday basis, to where it's like being a full-time pro. I mean, there was one club I worked for that they trained twice a day. I mean, like literally the kid he lived there. He would walk to the lunchroom or to the lunchroom, eat breakfast or lunch, then walk 20 yards to class, then from class go to training, back to the lunchroom, back to training again. I mean, it was just everything all in one place. It was awesome. And I think more MLS clubs are improving their facilities, which I think is really awesome. So for these kids to have that type of experience, I mean, some of these clubs, I mean, I don't want to mention names, but there's some of these clubs that are nicer than top clubs around the world, just in regards to facilities and resources that the kids have available to them. What could be better, I think, is the trial process. I think scouting for many clubs is really good, but then what happens when they get there? Who's picking them? Who decides who's staying? How we're gonna select the player. I think coaching. I'm not a fan of just because someone finished a playing career, they should be gifted the job coaching our best players. I don't think that makes sense. That should happen. And again, part of it's a little frustration on my end of someone who, full transparency, I want to coach at the highest level. And so, and I advocate, I'm not only advocating for me, but for other coaches that I know are fantastic that should be coaching at that level and are not. I think if we in this country, if we want players to go up, we have to have coaches go up too. We have great coaches in this country, and we'd never know about it. So we have to expose coaches and let our best coaches work with our best players. I think that's a big issue. What else? I think those two would be probably my main things that I think need to improve.
Okay, those are good points. I mean, as far as facilities, I've heard that some of these MLS clubs have tremendous facilities, better than the infrastructure that some of the pro clubs have in Europe. But kind of brings me to my last question to get your opinion on, because I hear this a lot too from players and so forth, is which I find interesting, because now we have more opportunities for players in the U.S. than ever before, right? With the USL landscape, MLS, and all this stuff. But you still have a lot of players that'll go, I want to go to Europe, and haven't made it here yet, but we're going to go to Europe. Which I can, I understand. If you're watching on TV, you're watching the Champions League, you want to play in that, be in that culture and everything, that footballing culture that exists over there. But what are your thoughts on that when you hear, kids that haven't even established themselves here yet, just go, okay, I want to go to Europe. I don't even want to mess with trying to go to MLS or USL, but straight to La Liga or the EPL.
Well, I'm gonna answer that question by also answering the last question you asked me, which is a third thing I would think needs to improve. And these guys a lot of times go to Europe or try to go to Europe because they weren't identified here. And I think what does need to improve here to help keep some of these kids here is, look, when we're scouting, it's very easy to identify a physical profile that's athletic, or just the kid that creates. So someone that's flashy, someone that's, like if I was watching Messi, it would take me 5 minutes to figure him out, because I'm like, man, this guy's amazing. Look at the way he just took on 3 players. Like anyone, you don't even have to be a scout to identify that player. But there's certain players that it takes time. It takes 3, 4, 5 times to watch this player to really appreciate what they do. It might be the defensive center midfielder who does all the dirty work and he controls the tempo of the game. He might not be flashy, he might be really simple, but he's so simple that he can almost go unnoticed. It takes time to appreciate that guy and scout him. And so sometimes we miss out on those guys, and those guys then get frustrated and go to Europe. But so then to answer that question as well, there's also, I get frustrated with this because I have parents that come up to me all the time and their kid's 14 or 15 years old. And they're like, hey, coach, we have this guy and he wants to send us to Europe. And I say, okay, well, do you have a European passport? And they say no. And I'm like, all right, then where are you going? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, you're going to go there and you're not going to be able to play. So, and if you're going to go there to a pay to play academy, this is not what if you can't make it here and you're playing, like I've had kids playing UPSL. I'm like, okay, you're playing UPSL. If you can't make it here, how do you expect to go to Germany? Like, do you not think that they have good players in Germany? They're just going to welcome some UPSL kid from America and just be like, yeah, here, take our spot. I don't think so. It's not that easy. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, I will say there are the exceptions. And that's why everyone's got to make their own decision. Now, when I was growing up and when I was a kid, 1996, when MLS was just starting and I was like 17, 18 years old, back then, especially before MLS, we didn't have an option. So there were a few guys around that they'd offer an opportunity to go to Europe or go to Germany. And Germany was very big for Americans. And we'd go and take the chance and we'd pack a backpack and go for it, But I think I don't want to say those days are over, but it's almost unnecessary. Like, if you can't make it here, I think you'd be hard pressed to go to Europe and then make it. Not saying it's impossible. It happens. So it's not, I think every situation is different. And again, this is why I offer that consulting service for those players that are, because some of these kids and families just need guidance and advice on how to maneuver in the whole process. What do I do? Like, they don't know what to do. So especially when they have a really talented kid and they get, the business of this thing starts to take over and you start to have agents involved and you start to have a guy involved that, he's going to charge you 20,000 or whatever to send you to Europe, and you're going to, and they pay it. But it's not a real opportunity, and they go because they're so desperate for the opportunity. But, yeah, so I would say try to make it here first would be my advice. You have a lot of opportunities here. The opportunities are only growing here in the United States. I think more pro teams are going to pop up. So try to make it here first.
Yep. Nope.
I do want to say, I want to touch on this because this is something that actually just recently happened. I have a good friend of mine who he played at the Division I level. I'm not going to mention any names or the school he played for, but he played at the Division I level, succeeded, right? He had a good youth career here. He won the USYS national championship, did all the things. And so his aspirations were to continue to play pro. And obviously I would say he's a bit more self-realistic though. He's very humble in the way he approaches, and he understands the small percentage of players that legitimately make it, right? We talked about making it. But he went over, he played in the Czech Republic, the second division, was over there. He was there for maybe a season, 2 seasons. And then he came back home and he didn't know what necessarily was next. He played with our UPSL and went on trial with the new team in Sarasota Paradise. And he didn't get a contract, right? So I think it's interesting, right? Because there are exceptions as well. But just listening to you speak about, obviously, there's so many different cases that you've probably dealt with. But now he just trains with the Paradise, and he also, he just plays UPSL, but he's aging out almost, right? He's getting to a point in his career where he's I want to say he's 25 now, 24, right? So he's a bit older. But then also listening to you in regards to the NAIA, right? Because I was a college coach in the NAI as well, so I can definitely attest to that point, right? Where I coached on the women's side. We have a player from Denmark who's 28 years old and playing against an 18-year-old freshman, and they're both freshmen. So, yeah, it was just definitely interesting. You hit the nail on the head because that literally just took place with Kai and I over here in St. Pete. So, very interesting to listen to.
So no, it's been a great conversation. Thanks again, Phil. If people want to get in touch with you, how would somebody do that? If you want to take advantage of your consulting services, or how does they get in touch with you?
I mean, I would say you could go to my website at zayasfc.com. You could also follow me on well, if you go to zayasfc.com, all my social media handles are there and they can follow me. And I'm getting messages now like, hey, I put something out there about highlight videos and how most of them are really bad. So I don't know if I mean, Ethan, you're a college coach, so I mean, and I put this out there and I was like, listen, I don't know how else to say it, but I'm just going to say it. Like, your videos are bad. And so, I said they suck. And so, but people are messaging me and they're like, Phil, can you tell me if my video sucks? And it's been hilarious, but I'm getting videos from like parents of 8-year-olds. And I'm like, guys,
wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sorry, 8-year-olds. Wow.
But the cool thing is they can message me there, and I respond. I try to respond. I try to respond to everyone.
That is brilliant. 8 years old, but I guess it's never too early to start, I guess, to find out. But all right, well, thanks again for coming on, Phil. It was been great. Hopefully you can bring it back another time for a second part at some point. So that'd be awesome. Again, thanks for your time and your sharing your experience and feedback with everyone. I think that's important. Again, education is the key for everything, right? So same thing for coaching as well and playing, but clearing some things up, providing education for parents and coaches is valuable. And now more than ever with all the social media, and you're getting hit with all kinds of information 24 hours a day. It's crazy. It's coming out of everywhere, and you don't even know where to go anymore, what to do. And so it's been great to have you on to kind of help clear things up. And if people want to get in touch with you, obviously they know where, and we'll can put those in those show notes as well when we upload that so they can find you. So again,
awesome.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you. Appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Phil.
Take care.
Yeah.